You know, guys, I didn't do this on purpose, but I just noticed that if you play this track, look at Lee. It really looks like he's dancing to it. It's so stupid. Look at his hand. He's really cutting up some rug, as we say in the UK, where I'm not from, by the way. Anyway, hopefully you guys are noticing something different about this video already. I finally went out and got myself a new microphone, which is something you've been asking for a long while. I was testing it earlier and I could tell a big difference in the audio quality. Hopefully you can as well, and hopefully my videos are a little bit easier to listen to going forward. I'm going to talk about Miguel in this video, but before we jump into that, I just want to give you guys a quick story, something fun that happened today that I just thought was a cool coincidence. If you're not interested, feel free to skip ahead, but I was going to take some notes to prepare for this video, right? So I wanted to look up Miguel's frame data for reference, and I typed Miguel frames into Google, which will usually take you to RB Norway, but I misspelled it and I wrote Miguel phrases with an F. And Google just spat out all these famous quotes by the Spanish novelist Miguel de Cervantes. If you don't know about Cervantes, he wrote this like super famous book called Don Quixote, which is considered to be like one of the most influential novels of all time. And I was just for fun reading these quotes while I was preparing for this video, and I noticed that Don Quixote is also the name of a famous, very famous chain of retail stores here in Japan that sell, among other things, electronics. And it just so happens that the store I went to earlier today to get the microphone that I'm currently speaking into was Don Quixote, so I thought that was a fun coincidence. Now we just need the next character reveal for Soul Calibur 6 to be Cervantes, and then we've had a lot of coincidences in one day. Before we begin, I guess I should give you one of these quotes now that I built this guy up. Yeah, let's go with this one. Mientras se gana algo, no se pierde nada, which means as long as you've gained something, you've lost nothing. Which isn't true, by the way. You can win a round of Tekken and still lose the whole game, and then you get demoted back down to Destroyer, and your wife leaves you because she thought she married a Gembu. So, yeah, maybe Cervantes is overrated. Anyway, let's talk about Miguel. When people ask me what my favorite character design in Tekken is, or my favorite character overall, I always say Miguel. And that's true, it has been since Tekken 6 when I started playing Tekken very casually. I didn't actually get serious about being good at Tekken until the late years of Tekken Tag 2, but I've always really liked him, and I haven't mained him in any game. I don't main him in Tekken 7. I'm considering doing it right now, which is one of the reasons I'm making this video. But the reasons I don't main him right now is that while I think he's like easily the most fun to play character in the game, by a margin actually, there are a couple of small kind of annoying things about his design that I don't think make a lot of sense, and you could tweak them very easily to make him a lot more powerful. He's a little bit undertuned at the moment in my opinion. And I just find it so much easier to get my damage in ways that make sense with other characters that I enjoy in this game. But I'm going to tell you specifically what I mean in this video. First, let's explain why I think Miguel's character design is so excellent. Let's start with the visuals. I mean, if you don't know, when Namco made Miguel for Tekken 6, the design philosophy was that they wanted to make a character that was a very powerful fighter but had no formal martial arts training. So, you know, unlike Lee, who we're fighting here, who has like this like Jeet Kune Do, very like graceful kung fu style, he's more of like a violent brawler, and they absolutely nailed that style, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen like people fight in bars or like hooligans on the streets and riots and stuff, but he has these like super wide arcs and lariats with his punches. Like the taunts, the whole stance, the way he stands and everything, it's just really perfect. They've nailed that with him. I mean, just look at this move. It's like one of the funniest moves ever. It's called the Cyclone Slap, by the way. He like winds up a bitch slap by rotating a full 360 while roundhouse kicking you, and then he bitch slaps you so hard in the face that you go flying. I mean, it's a hilarious move. And he has a lot of bitch slaps, by the way. He has the back one as well. You can slap him on that cheek, you can slap him on this cheek. And you know, the way he just carries himself and swings his body around, his feet feel heavy, his hands feel heavy, and the sparks, the sound effects and everything just comes together to make him just a spectacle. I think he's perfect in that sense. And then when you have a look at the gameplay design, you'll find that there's actually a lot of focus and a lot of interesting things going on with that as well. When people talk about Miguel, They usually call him a poke-based character, and I've heard him referred to as a momentum-based poker, which is a pretty good description of him, I guess. But it's kind of one of these fancy terms that people like to throw around, like, oh, Lily is a high-risk, high-reward character. That just means that if you block some of her lows, you can launch Punisher. I mean, people like to try and categorize characters, which is kind of hard in Tekken. But I think it kind of makes sense to call him momentum-based poker. I mean, he's a poking character in the sense that he has a lot of good poking attacks that he can use to rack up damage. And then the momentum part comes in because after a lot of his moves, he can hold forward to go into this stance, which is Savage stance. And then he can get a mix-up because it's kind of a mix-up stance, right? So the idea is that you look for hits with your pokes. When you find one, you go into Savage, you mix your opponent up. If you get another hit, you can go back into Savage and you can do another mix-up. So you start off with a small hit, and you then allow that small hit to cascade into more and more damage, and it becomes this really interesting momentum-based style, which is super interesting. And Savage stance, by the way, I think might be the largest stance in the game. If you look at Miguel's move list, you'll find that something like a third of all the moves he has are actually gated behind Savage stance, and a lot of them are like rare and situational. I mean, this thing has a punch parry, this thing is like plus on block, all of these super interesting moves that you don't see all that much, but they all have situational application, and so you can have a lot of fun if you want to go deep with this character and learn a lot about him, and I suggest that you do. Now I want to talk a little bit about my grievances with the character, just to crystallize my own thoughts on them and talk a little bit about how I would like to see Miguel changed. The first thing that we need to talk about, I've got three main things that I want to bring up, but the first thing is going to be his 10 frame jab string. Now, if you are a poking based character in this game, you really want to have a good jab string, and the reason for that is that your most powerful poke and your most important poke, no matter what character you're playing, is your one jab, in my opinion. It's not only the fastest poke or the fastest move you're going to possibly have with like 99% of the cast, it's also plus on block. It's like an amazing tool, right? But the problem with Miguel's string, I mean, first of all, his 1-2 is good in the sense that you get 19 damage, which is decent, but the second hit, he swings his arm around like this, right? Meaning that this move actually has really good tracking, and it can catch people who are trying to sidestep your jabs. If they sidestep the one, they very often get hit by the two, and that's super good. The problem with the whole thing is that the one jab by itself has limited range, as you can see right here. The range is shorter than, in my opinion, it should be, and that's a problem in two ways. It creates two big issues. First of all, it really limits your main poke, and it limits your ability to close the distance and open up offense with Miguel. He has a lot of high risk stuff he can do from out here. I mean, this is duckable, this is punishable, this is duckable. I mean, he has a pretty good slash kick, but that's linear. So, you know, if he just wants to go in and open up offense with something pretty safe, a very good option for that a lot of people will use is to run in and look for a lead jab. But he can't really do that when especially when he's playing a character like Lee, who has good range on a lot of his stuff, because the range is too stubby and it just becomes a big risk. The other big problem with having short range on your one jab is that it limits your ability to punish 10 frames on block. That's a little bit of a problem with Miguel, because even with moves that don't have a lot of pushback, he will actually sometimes struggle to punish with his 1-2. Where most other characters would comfortably be able to. And that's a big problem, because when you block something, you know you're supposed to be able to get a 10 frame move for a punish, you do a 1-2, and the one jab just whiffs, you can actually get launched in a situation where you're supposed to be guaranteed damage in the shape of your 10 frame punish. You can get yourself launched, which is I think a little bit unfortunate. And I mean, this is not like a tall order. It would make perfect sense for them to just go in and actually just extend the hitbox of the one jab, and then Miguel would have a very strong 10 frame block punisher and lead jab for poking, and then that would really tie the room together for him in a lot of ways in terms of his poking game. And you know, he can use the jab string, attack on the 4, go into Savage, and he gets plus frames on blocks. I mean, it's a really interesting and fun jab string overall. It's just the range on the one is too stubby, and I think it's it's unfortunate in a way where it doesn't really make sense. It would make a lot more sense to fix it, actually. It wouldn't make the character overpowered. It would just make him function better, in my opinion. The next thing I want to talk about, and it's a big one for me that I've been thinking about a lot with Miguel, is his down back one. I think this is one of the most interesting lows we have in Tekken. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects to this move, but there are also problems with it. Now, I should mention, if you don't know, by the way, that when Miguel hits with his down back one, he can get a guaranteed mini combo that looks like this. That's the optimal combo that you can do here. You get 37 damage, which is pretty high for guaranteed damage off of a low. I think it's slightly higher than what you would get off of something like Demolition Man or Falling Leaf from Leo or a move like that. The big difference being, and this is very, very important, is that Falling Leaf and Demo Man and lows like those are unseeable lows, whereas this move is 25 frames on startup. 25 frames on startup is in a range where it's seeable a lot of the time. You're still going to get away with it a lot of the time, and it's an important move that Miguel sort of has to use. I think it's really, really good, but because of those 25 frames on startup, especially when you're playing offline, it becomes a little bit too seeable, and you're going to get launched, punished for getting this move blocked. I think this is the main reason we're not seeing a lot of high-level Miguel players in tournament right now, because if you could bank on this low to create powerful mix-ups in the close-up game, that's a huge deal for this character. But if you're playing, some of the better players in the world, like a high-level tournament player, and you're doing it offline, the risk of them actually seeing and blocking this low and launching you becomes a lot higher. So, why can other characters have that really powerful low that empowers all of their mids in the close-up game, but Miguel's has to be slow enough that it becomes very difficult to use? I think that's unfortunate. And I've mentioned this before, but the reason, for example, Demo Man is such a powerful move, it's not really the damage that it deals, it's more about the fact that if you run up and stand here against your opponent and you have a powerful knockdown low like that, that makes you scary by default, because your opponent is always going to be looking out for that low. That's going to cause them to duck a lot unnecessarily, and that empowers all of your mids and makes your mids more powerful. So it's a great thing it allows you to create a natural mix-up by just standing right in front of your opponent. So it's a huge deal for characters like Leo and Paul. It doesn't really quite work out for Miguel because of the slowness of the move. So why is this move so slow? Well, I think one of the reasons it is slow is that it does give you slightly more damage, not enough that it's significant, but the other thing, and I can prove that Namco actually want you to use this move. They intend for you to use this move with Miguel. I can prove it by talking about his Rage Drive, and this is the next chapter in my story about this move, right? So think a little bit about Rage Drives. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee here, by the way, because my throat is really drying up. Sorry. Okay, so Rage Drives in general are like a souped up version of your character's most iconic move. You think about Dragunov, you think about Running 2, and he has a blue version of his Running 2 for his Rage Drive. Paul gets a blue version of his Death Fist, right? Stuff like that. With Miguel, he gets this thing, which is a very, very, very low damage launcher. It doesn't really lead to anything exceptional. You can really get full combo damage off it. You can get somewhere upwards of 50 if you do an advanced combo off it, I think. Maybe if you're good at doing, Savage up 4-3 into 4-4-2-1, but that's really hard. I don't recommend it in competitive games. So it's not a very powerful move overall. It's not really that useful by itself, but it has amazing synergy with the down back one that we talked about earlier, because only in this situation, when you hit with down back one and you have the rage, you can use this to spin and create a full combo off of the down back one. And so his Rage Drive essentially allows him to get a full combo off of one of his powerful lows. That's a very interesting design choice for a Rage Drive. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a fun idea, but it sort of all hinges on the fact that the down back one is a move that Miguel uses and gets away with using. And when the move is so slow that it's difficult to use by itself, that kind of also makes the Rage Drive a lot less useful, because it doesn't really have any good applications out of this situation. You can also use it if you use crouch canceling to get a combo off of this move. Let's see if we can get that. Maybe we need to be a little bit closer. There you go. So if you're good at crouch canceling, you can do that, but that's also a seeable launch punishable low, so it doesn't really change the situation at all. So yeah, it's clear that this move is meant to be used. It is evidenced by the fact that they made his rage drive this way, but he kind of goes out of the window a little bit because of the relative slowness of this move. But I need to mention that I use this move a lot still when I feel I can get away with it, and when I can get away with it and it doesn't get blocked. It's an amazing move. It's a super powerful low, and I really, really like it. So another proposed change I have for Miguel is to make this something like maybe 21 frames on startup. I think that would be perfectly balanced. It would be very powerful because it would be, at the same speed as down back 4 from Lars, kind of in that range, and he doesn't get a lot of guaranteed damage for hitting, but he gets a full combo on counter hit. So maybe that makes sense. Or leave it the way it is, but make it, maybe minus 13 on block instead of minus, instead of launch punishable. So I think you either need to make this move safer or make it faster. I would recommend making it faster. That would make his rage drive a lot more intimidating and allow that to make more sense. And then, yeah, I think you'd solved a lot of Miguel's problems, and that would aid his mix-ups in the close-up game because of how powerful a low he has all of a sudden. So I think that's a great idea as well. I'm going to mention, by the way, that the combo you get here is not like it's super high damage. It's actually difficult to get full combo damage off of it. I would usually do something like this and collect 50 damage. So it's not like you get a broken super high damage combo or anything for connecting with it anyway. Alright, I think I probably do something like this most of the time, yeah? Okay, one more thing that I want to talk about. Oh guys, by the way, don't look now, but there's a really cute girl looking at us in the background. Maybe if we keep talking about Miguel, she'll take off those awful cowboy boots and come over. Anyway, the last thing I want to mention is that I want to talk a little bit about this downward 1-1 string, which is kind of a central string for Miguel and one of his main tools that you have to use for mix-ups all the time. And his downward 1 is his main tool for accessing Savage Stance. It's his main mid poke. It's his most important, most iconic move overall. And it becomes more important because if your jabs are stumpy and you don't get a good range on them, then another fast, good poke that you can open up offense with is your downward 1. So the weakness of his jabs, I think, actually increases his reliance on his downward 1. Now, the way this string works is that you can do downward 1-1, which is natural, which is great, and then you can tack on a 3 for a low or a 2 for a mid, and there's a mix-up there, which is fine, and if you get the 3, you can go into Savage Stance, by the way, which maybe isn't important right now. The problem being that if you're pretty quick, you can actually duck the second hit of this downward 1-1, so when you hit with this string, it's not like this mid and this low is a guaranteed mix-up or anything. If your opponent is sharp, they're gonna duck that second hit and they can launch you. They have enough time. Now, I play Miguel myself, so I'm very familiar with this string. So when I play against Miguel, I mean, you've seen a couple of matches of me playing against other Miguels. You can see me pretty consistently actually ducking and launching this. Now, it almost never happens to me when I play online because most of my opponents are not familiar with Miguel because he's underused, right? He's not a very popular character. They certainly don't play Miguel themselves, and so it's harder for them to react to this string. But if I can do it pretty easily and pretty consistently, then a high-level tournament player who's fighting against Miguel is definitely going to be pretty comfortable doing it as well. And so it makes this very important string a lot weaker. Now, there is a saving grace here in the shape of downward 1-2. He has a mid extension that he can use instead of because this is the 1-1, right? This is the high. He can do the 2 instead and do a mid for a mix-up, and it does decent damage. You can see that the second hit by itself does like 18. If you get a counter hit here, by the way, it does even more. So it's a pretty powerful mid, and it's gonna make it dangerous for people to try and duck this high every time. But then the downward 1-2 here is punishable on block, so it's not like it's a safe option you can throw out a lot either. If you're trying to whittle your opponent down with this string or this string, an option they have is actually to stand block the first hit, try and react to the second one and predict it and duck it and launch you, or just keep on stand blocking the second hit, punishing that, or keep on block the 1-1 and then the 2, and then they can punish that as well. And so the only real damage that becomes very difficult for them to actually deal with here is the 3 extension, which is a low. but it's not like that's super powerful or anything, and they can obviously block and parry that as well. I think they even have time to hop kick it. So what I'm trying to get to here is that I can see the sort of mix-up balance philosophy behind the string. It just ends up being a little bit weaker than it should be, in my opinion, and because it's so important for Miguel, I think it would make a lot more sense if it were more powerful. And the proposed change I have for this string is that I think that this 1-1 here, downward 1-1, should actually jail. It's my proposed change. Now, that might sound very, very powerful and a little bit overblown, but remember that characters like, for example, Katarina, who has a very similar downward 1-1 to this. It's mid-high, it has even better range than Miguel's in my opinion, it's also a natural combo, it does comparable damage, it's a very similar string in a lot of ways, it doesn't have these extensions, but she can go into Harrier and get mix-ups off of it and stuff. That's actually a move that jails, so she can go up, she can use it as a quick punisher, she can poke with it with relative safety, throw out the second hit, and she doesn't have to constantly have that little bit of like worry in her stomach that when I do this very powerful important poke that I need to rely on, my opponent could just, you know, have a moment of clarity and duck and launch me for this. So I think that's one way you could change this string for Miguel to make him make a lot more sense either. But really, those are like the main gripes I have with him. Everything else feels amazing, looks amazing, and is really, really fun. And I just want to recommend to everybody out there that if you've never tried Miguel, just give him a shot and play a couple of games with him. Even though I talked about how Savage is a very deep stance and how Miguel, you know, is a character that kind of needs to be specialized in, he's actually not that hard to pick up. And he has a lot of sort of basic tools that are going to make sense to you. 15 frame hop kick, 13 frame down forward 1, jabs, very decent low pokes by the way, a very strong part of his game. Down back 4 is excellent, down 3 is excellent, down back 3 is excellent, down back 3-4 is excellent, but kind of punishable. Savage down back 3 is really good, Savage down 4-3 is even better. So I mean, he has a lot of really fun, good stuff, and I think you're going to get as addicted to this character as I am if you give him a shot. I think that Miguel, I was thinking about it today, but he's really the only character in the entire game where I would be really, really, really sad and really upset if he didn't show up in the next iteration of Tekken. The only Tekken 6 character that went on the chopping block so far was Zafina, because she was a little bit odd and didn't see a lot of popularity. But Miguel is, while he's a beloved character, he's not really that popular right now, and I think we need to send a message to Namco, because they actually look at character popularity when they decide their roster, that we as players want to reward ingenuity and great design like Miguel's with our love and our attention, which are our two most valuable currencies as human beings, right? Okay, so that's going to be my little discussion on Miguel and where I think he stands right now and why I really like him. I think I've pretty much decided that I'm going to try and develop my Miguel more, spend even more time with him, and really try and like dig a little bit deeper into his design to work around a lot of the things that worry about me about him, so that I can actually use him as my main, because he is just the most fun character to me. I'm doing this move by the way right now because it's a move that I haven't been using so far, but it's really good, so I should. You get guaranteed damage. But yeah, that's the video. I hope it was somewhat enjoyable. I hope more than anything that the audio was decent and that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. More videos very soon, obviously. Yeah, thank you very much for always supporting the channel. And I'll see you guys again within the next few days. Bye bye.